Hey guys, I know this is probably getting annoying, but oh well, I have a Discord. Okay, bye, enjoy the video. Fukurodani group chat. Hey, everyone is online. Hello Bokuto-san. Akaashi, what's up? Yeah, what's going on? Can we do a 3rd years plus Akaashi movie night? I'm down. Me too. We can use my house. Both of my parents are on business trips. That night, the movie night ended up being more than just the Fukurodani 3rd years and Akaashi. Not that Akaashi minded. Sometime during Avengers, Endgame, Kuru and Bokuaka showed up. The next movie they watched was the Blair Witch Project, which had Bokuto and Akaashi unconsciously moving closer to each other out of fear. Akaashi was surprised that Bokuto hadn't cried during any of the movies, but when Konoha announced that they were going to watch The Perks of Being a Wallflower, he knew the movie would for sure make Bokuto cry. And he was right. Halfway into the movie, Bokuto started crying and snuggled into Akaashi's side while crying, gripping onto his shirt and burying his face in Akaashi's shoulder. Akaashi drew little doodles with his finger on Bokuto's back. He slowly stopped crying, but kept his face buried in Akaashi's shoulder. Bodies snuggled close together. With the warmth and comfort Akaashi was radiating, Bokuto found it hard not to fall asleep. And after a couple minutes, ended up dozing off. Akaashi's attention was divided between the ace curled into his side and the movie. Akaashi loved The Perks of Being a Wallflower because he saw himself in Charlie. He had always been pretty quiet, not many friends because of that, but then he came into his first year of high school and met people in the grades above him who made him feel wanted and liked, namely Bokuto. Akaashi's eyes drifted across the room as the most iconic quote from the movie played. "We accept the love we think we deserve." His gaze settled on Bokuto, who was smiling gently in his sleep. Bokuto was the type of person who had endless amounts of love to give to everyone he met. He'd been that way since before Akaashi met him, and Akaashi found himself wondering how it was possible that not everyone that met Bokuto fell in love with him immediately. Akaashi knew he fell hard and fast for the captain, and the movie became background sound to Akaashi as he reminisced on all the times he fell harder for him. Flashback 1, when he fell in love with Bokuto's smile. 15-year-old Akaashi stood in the bleachers watching the match that was going on. It was the Nationals qualifying match between Fukurodani and Nahibe. Akaashi should been at Nahibe's side of the bleachers. His cousin was a 3rd year on Nahibe's team, and he was the one who told Akaashi to come watch the match. Everyone in Akaashi's family wanted him to follow in his cousin's footsteps and go to school at Nahibe. And for the longest time, that was where Akaashi wanted to go, because his cousin was the only volleyball player that he looked up to. But this match changed everything for Akaashi. He was sitting in the bleachers, on Nahibe's side of court, watching his cousin stretch in between plays, when he heard someone start shouting from the other side of the court, hey, let's do amazing and beat them." Akaashi looked wide-eyed at the boy. He was obviously a 1st year, but he was tall and muscular, and oh my god, he's beautiful, Akaashi thought to himself. The boy's energy and excitement were like an invisible force pulling Akaashi to him. From across the gym, Akaashi could see the boy's excited smile that sparked through Akaashi's body, and he hardly spared a second glance at his cousin. Before running to the other side of the bleachers, he picked up a pamphlet that was abandoned on the ground, and flipped through the pages, until he found the pictures and names of the players. Bokuto Kotoru was his name, a 1st year as Akaashi guessed, and according to the pamphlet, well on his way to being one of the top 5 aces in the country. Akaashi watched in awe throughout the match at Bokuto, whose energy never wavered, unless he missed a spike. Akaashi envied the boy's ability to be loud and show his excitement about everything. Despite coming to the match for Nahibe, he found himself cheering for every point Fukurodani made, or maybe just for every point Bokuto made. At one point, to Akaashi's surprise, he found himself cheering out loud for one line shot Bokuto made. Bokuto must have heard, because he looked up at Akaashi and flashed him a blinding smile, giving a thumbs up as well. It was at that exact moment that Akaashi knew what he wanted. It wasn't to go to Nahibi. No, he wanted to go to be by Bokuto's side. He went home shortly after the match ended, feeling like Bokuto's energy and excitement had turned into his own, and he applied for Fukurodani. It was that day he fell in love with the stranger for the first time. Flashback 2, when he fell in love with Bokuto's personality. Akaashi was roaming the hallways of Fukurodani before school one morning on the first week of school. He still hadn't seen Bokuto, but he'd heard talk about him around the school. Apparently he was the co-captain of the volleyball team this year, and well liked by all the girls. It had been several months since he'd seen the match between Nahibi and Fukurodani, and he hadn't been able to go to nationals and watch them play, but he still remembered Bokuto's smile in full detail. His heart would beat a little faster just thinking about it. He ended up in front of a bulletin board that had flyers for all of the clubs Fukurodani offered. He picked up a volleyball flyer. He stared at the flyer for a minute, questioning if he should join the team. They placed second at nationals. Am I even good enough to join the team? He thought. Akaashi always wanted to get closer to Bokuto, but now, having the opportunity to do so, he wondered, would Bokuto even like me, want to be friends with me? He almost threw away the flyer, but a voice stopped him. Hey, are you wanting to join the volleyball team? Akaashi's stomach dropped, his brain short-circuited, his heart beating faster, as he turned around and saw him, smile as bright as he remembered. I don't really know. The team got second in nationals, right? I don't know if I'm on the same level as a nationally ranked team, but you know you're part of the reason we went to nationals, right? And you weren't even playing. I saw you in the stands, really quiet and not cheering much, but then I made an awesome line shot and you cheered, and hearing you cheer made me wanna play even better. Akaashi blushed, looking at his feet. Bokuto was looking at him expectantly, bouncing on the balls of his feet. Akaashi felt himself already admiring Bokuto's personality, that seemed to match his smile. At least come in for open practice tonight. You're probably better than you think you are. Okay, I guess I'll come tonight. Bokuto cheered and told him the time and location of the practice, then ran off as the bell rang. At the open practice, the new first years bowed and introduced themselves and their positions to the second and third years, then split off the practice. Akaashi, that's your name, right? You play setter. Can you set for me? I guess I can. Bokuto and Akaashi got in position. Then Bokuto tossed Akaashi a ball. He set it to the perfect place, remembering how the setter set for Bokuto during qualifiers. Bokuto hit it perfectly, then ran over to Akaashi. Akaashi, you're amazing. Please join the team for real. Bokuto grabbed his hands, and Akaashi looked down at the connection, fighting off a blush. He could only nod, not trusting his voice. Bokuto cheered, then pulled Akaashi into a short hug, before insisting they play more. For the next month, life continued the same way. Bokuto and Akaashi had grown to be best friends, but something else was growing, a feeling that Akaashi tried to fight off, but couldn't. It was during that time Akaashi fell in love with his now best friend. For second time, flashback 3, when he fell in love with Bokuto's flaws. Akaashi's heart cramped. His brain slowed down as his mind reeled over the words Bokuto had just told him. Akaashi, I got a girlfriend. We are going out this weekend. Akaashi wouldn't let any evidence of sadness show on his face. His best friend was so happy. He wouldn't ruin this for someone who deserved all the happiness in the world for his own selfish reasons. I'm happy for you, Bokuto-san. Bokuto looked like he wanted to respond, but was interrupted as his girlfriend came up to them and dragged Bokuto off. And over the course of a few weeks, Akaashi could only watch as a canyon was carved in between the two boys. Their lunchtime hangouts ended. They walked home alone, or at least, Akaashi walked home alone. Bokuto no longer waited for Akaashi outside his classroom. Their friendship quickly became restricted to texting and practice. Akaashi knew it wasn't really Bokuto's fault. His girlfriend was rather territorial and overbearing, but even if she wasn't, Akaashi would have understood Bokuto leaving him behind in the dust. This sort of thing had happened to Akaashi before. It's not like he wasn't used to it, just now, it hurt so much more, because he liked Bokuto so much more. It was 2:28 AM on a Tuesday when Akaashi's phone ringing on FaceTime woke him up. Akaashi drowsily picked up the phone, about to turn it off, before he saw the caller ID, Bokuto. He was shocked to silence seeing Bokuto's face. His eyes were red, face flushed, and he was sobbing, obviously trying to keep quiet. Because of how late it was, Akaashi tried to form words without crying himself at the sight. Bokuto-san, what's wrong? She broke up with me. Akaashi was about to respond, but in between shaky breaths and small hiccups, Bokuto continued to talk, and that didn't really hurt me. I kind of knew that we weren't going to work. Then what's wrong? If you knew the two of you were going to break up. Akaashi didn't even want to imagine what could have happened that had Bokuto, the happiest, most bubbly person Akaashi had ever met, crying his eyes out in a dark bedroom in the middle of the night. Akaashi, am I too loud, or too emotional, or too energetic? Am I annoying to you? Akaashi watched as Bokuto cried harder as he asked those questions, and he felt a wave of anger wash over him. Did your girlfriend say these things to you? She said that those were my worst flaws, and that they're more, but those were the ones no one would ever be able to love about me. I love your flaws, Akaashi thought to himself, but he knew he couldn't say those words out loud, so he settled for the next best option. Bokuto-san, don't listen to her. Sure, you're loud, and you have this supply of never-ending energy, no matter the time or place or situation. And you're a sympathetic crier and you get down and out yourself so easily. But those things don't make you annoying. Those things are what make you, you. Those things aren't annoying. They're almost heartwarming. And it's what makes you like absolutely nobody else in the world. Those things are some of the reasons I look up to you. Some of the reasons you're so amazing. If it weren't for those things, I wouldn't have noticed you on the court last year. Don't listen to her. Thank you, Akaashi. I wish I could hug you right now. Akaashi checked the clock, then looked back at Bokuto, who was still crying, but also had a small smile. I can come over. 10 minutes later, Akaashi had successfully snuck into Bokuto's house. Bokuto was curled up on his bed, surrounded by blankets and a tissue box. Akaashi's heart broke seeing the boy like that. He pushed the blankets off of Bokuto, setting the tissue box on his nightstand. Akaashi threw all caution to the wind, and crawled under the blankets beside Bokuto, both of them laying on their sides facing each other. Akaashi wrapped his arms around Bokuto, burying his face in Bokuto's hair. They fell asleep like that, Bokuto sharing his pain with Akaashi, who shared his love with Bokuto. That night, he fell in love with Bokuto for the third time. Flashback 4, when Bokuto taught Akaashi to love himself, and as a result fell in love with Bokuto even more. Akaashi only stayed on the court for as long after the game as he needed to. As soon as the coach dismissed the team to pack up their stuff, Akaashi ran into one of the empty hallways surrounding the stadium. Ignoring how Bokuto called out for him, his legs kept running until he was alone, and he sunk down against the wall, finally letting the tears fall. He felt so bad, blaming himself for what happened. Akaashi looked up at Bokuto, who started running when he saw that Akaashi was crying. What's wrong, Akaashi? Bokuto squatted down in front of Akaashi, their knees touching. I'm sorry, Bokuto-san. Why are you apologizing? I'm the reason we lost nationals. We could have gotten first place. If I hadn't messed up that last set, it was too low for you. You couldn't use your cross shot because it was too short. Everyone worked so hard, and I messed it up. I knew I wasn't good enough for a nationally ranked team. Akaashi, don't say that. We lost as a team. You aren't alone. And it wasn't your fault we lost. Kashi, we all made mistakes. We all had flaws in our gamma play throughout the game. No one on the team blames you, Akaashi. No one but yourself. I don't blame you. And, weren't you the one who taught me that my flaws are something to be loved? You should take your own advice. You're too hard on yourself, and you don't think you're perfect the way you are. but you are. Okay, don't blame yourself. Please Kashi. Bokuto pulled Akaashi into his chest, and Akaashi held on tight, crying into Bokuto's jersey. He didn't want to accept Bokuto's kind words. He didn't think he deserved it, so instead he redirected the love Bokuto was giving him, and he fell in love with Bokuto for the 4th time. Akaashi was shaken out of his daze by Konoha, who was telling everyone that they should go to bed because the movie had ended. Akaashi was about to stand up, but was glued to the couch by Bokuto, who was deep asleep still cuddled into Akaashi. He shifted his position, then gently picked up the ace and carried him to Akaashi's bedroom. Somehow, he managed to stay asleep. So he tucked Bokuto into Akaashi's bed. Akaashi sat on the edge of the bed, admiring how peaceful Bokuto looked while sleeping. We accept the love we think we deserve. Akaashi believed that Bokuto deserved all of the love in the world, and he found himself wondering, would Bokuto accept my love if I gave it to him?